Hello. Today we're going to talk about how to set your price. This is a really complex issue that a lot of founders really struggle with because is it I price high, I price low? Do I just go with my competitor's price? What if my value is 10x my competitors? I want to go through all of this, talk about how you can approach pricing the right way, right? Again, there's just the way that works, shall we say, and get you on the right track. So let's dive right in. So first, understanding the pricing journey. Now, it's important to understand that your price is going to evolve based off of really, it's going to evolve the whole time. If you don't believe me, your Netflix price probably changed in the last couple of months. So there you go. But more than anything, it's going to evolve mentally because of how you approach pricing at the various early stages, because they're so distinct, right? And what you're looking for is so distinct at each one. So stage one, you've got your alpha, right? So this is you're building your minimum viable product. You've got a successfully working version, meaning the devs just handed it to the internal team. And now you're here to test. This is internal testing. This is the developers testing. This is the CEO, you as the founder, making sure that what you want to put in front of your first users, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what is it, right? And is it working the way that you intended? More often than not, of course, you're going to find bugs and issues, and stage one is about fixing problems. So notice it's free because you're not charging anybody anything. You're just trying to make the product good enough to actually put it out there in stage two. Stage two is your minimum viable product is realized and you enter beta. And beta is, of course, centered on your early adopters. Early adopters meaning the people that are the most inclined to use your product, the most inclined to get the benefit out of it in the early days. So what we're trying to do is say, hey, now our product is working pretty well, at least internally. Let's get it out to those first users. And stage three, mainstream adopters. Now, the time distinction between stage one and stage two is really up to how good the demand is, how kind of viral it can be, whether it's through word of mouth, through really efficient sales, through social media explosion, what have you. But fundamentally, the quicker you can get there, the better. But if you have to stay at stage two longer to make the product good enough to get to stage three, that's totally fine. Stage one, alpha testing. We chatted about this. This is internal testing before external feedback is received. There's no price. We're not concerned about it. So what are we doing about price during this stage? We are doing the research. We're looking at the market. We're analyzing the product. Again, this is where we're trying to say, if we're charging for a result, okay, well, how much result do we deliver? If, again, we're charging per pound, again, just to use a unit, and we do the math and do the testing and we realize that, hey, we were projecting to get results of 5 pounds and we actually got results of 2 pounds. It's like, well, that's notably lower. And if we're charging per pound, as an example, we want to get to 5, not at 2. Notice now we're trying to understand what's our price, what's our value, how well is our machine working. The goal here fundamentally when you're launching your business, I find is we're trying to look for a product or a price that's not wrong. And wrong is more, it's not about being right. It's about not being wrong. I'll give you an example. If your closest competitor that offers almost, let's just say for the sake of ease, it's an Uber Lyft. If Uber was 6 times, 10 times as expensive as Lyft, that's wrong. Yeah, it might be you add a little bit more value or you do little nuances, 5% more, 5% less. But if you're multiple times as expensive as the competitor that offers effectively the same exact thing in pink, yeah, you're going to run into big problems. And your pricing is from a mathematical perspective, wrong. We got to fix that. Stage two, MVP beta. So when we're thinking of beta broadly, there's 2 types of betas. There's open betas where basically people can continue to join, participate, engage, share stuff with the world, what have you. And then there's closed betas. Closed betas can be you just bring on a small group. It could be the group is like really NDA'd and you're working with like 1, 5, 10 of them to get feedback and input and what have you. Doesn't really matter which you kind of approach. Typically, you're going to have B2B companies that use closed betas because they're really trying to get in the weeds with 1, 5, 10, 50 customers. Again, depends on the business to get that feedback to polish before they push out to hundreds or thousands of businesses. Similarly, consumer companies, or, distinctly, consumer companies tend to do more open betas because they want to get engagement. They want to start building a fan base, and they know that the transition from open, small, they're only going to get 50, 100, 1,000, 5,000. It's all relative to your business and your social media presence. You're only going to get those amount of customers. And then from there, you want to grow and expand because you need to go from 1,000 to 100,000 to 1 million, right? So it's about determining what's best for you. Typically, I see more closed than open, but open totally works. You just have to be open to the possibility. And here's the framework. If you have one bug and you ship it to one customer, you have one bug. If you have one bug and you ship it to 1,000 customers, you have 1,000 bugs because all those customers experience it and all of them could follow up. Now you can imagine if you had 3, 4, 5 bugs and you had 3, 4, 5,000 customers. You can see how things can get going in the wrong direction really quickly. And they don't have to if you just approach feedback, onboarding. Maybe it's a limited beta or it's an open beta for the first 5,000 people. So you kind of limit the problems. Again, there's an art and science to all of this, but fundamentally it's about understanding who are we launching to and what context, because that context also is going to help us understand pricing. Our focus is at the core market. Now, this is a really important point that a lot of founders overlook. They believe that their core market is the mainstream market. In my experience, that is the end market. Because if your business is getting mainstream attention, it's probably a pretty successful business. You're looking at exits, you're doing a thing, or you're growing substantially. But what happens before that kind of mainstream market? It's all the early adopters. So this is where your beta's fleshed out. This is where your product value is proven. This is where the first 100,000, 500,000, million, 5 million, millions of dollars can be made in your early adopter market. You can put yourself in a new life and never touch the mainstream market. And I really need you to hear this and think this and reflect upon this, because you're so eager to get to college, you're forgetting that grade school and high school can be fun, right? And are worth going through. You can't just jump straight there. And if you already made it to college, you're doing good, right? You're already on the right path. I'm less concerned. So I want to encourage here that when we're thinking about pricing, when we're thinking about that early stage experience, we are 100 times more focused on early adopters than mainstream. I do not care about mainstream, because if I do early adopters well, I'll get mainstream. If I don't do early adopters well, the end of the business. Feedback at this point, or the cost of the product to the customer, can be free for feedback, and or it can be paid, or it could be transitioned to paid. So it's, hey, again, let's just say it's an offering to a B2B customer. You say, hey, we want to try this out. We want to give you free access to our tool. We're not going to cost you anything. If things are looking good after 3 months, we want to transition to a subscription fee at this price. Great. You could also exclude that last piece and say, hey, we're just going to do the trial and then we'll negotiate pricing at the end. You could also say, hey, we're going to go out to the market with a $50 price per month. As a part of being our beta, we want to give you a discount and have you join at $20 per month. You're doing something to make it worthwhile, working under the assumption, which is the average assumption, that the businesses are not jumping at your product. I've met very few founders where the product is being pulled from their hands in the early days. More often, they have to push it and they have to negotiate and they have to get the proof, get the demand, build the momentum. Most important thing here is going to get use, because you can always translate usage, let's call it positive usage, where there's value, ROI received, into money. You cannot translate the potential of money into money. A lot of founders and advisors, they speak to saying you have to price, you have to charge from day one. Teach their own. They can believe that very strongly by all means. I disagree because I think that momentum is more important than revenue, because I can turn momentum into revenue. I can't turn hypothetical revenue into momentum, right? We could be worth $1 million, but nobody wants our product. It's like, well, why don't we flip the focus and go, how do we get more people to want our product? Hey, if all these people were paying $10, we'd have $1 million. There you go. Stage 3, mainstream adopters plus EA. EA meaning early adopters. Because again, you think it's the mainstream, the early adopter market is probably huge for your market. And when I say huge, I mean huge enough to make a material impact on your life for forever. That's big enough. But Aaron, there's 100 million. I don't care. I don't care. No one that tells you they cares, because until you get through grade school, I don't believe in your ability to hit high school. You haven't passed 5th grade. We're not talking about senior year. It's foolish. It seems silly because, again, founders think, and I understand mainstream media, and I live in my founder universe, which is very bootstrappy, very community, not very big and fancy, which is you think you have to go a certain way to build your company and get to $100 million in value in 6 months. It's just not true. You can get to 100 million in learning in 6 months and then make the 100 million over 6 years or 3 years, what have you. The better you perform with your MVP during your beta, the easier it's going to be to transition into this. Because fundamentally, you want to think about early adopters are less risk averse, right? Which means they're more risk inclined. They're willing to try stuff that may fail, may not work, may be early. Well, then what's the distinction between early and mainstream? Mainstream, far more risk averse, which means much less risk inclined. They don't want risk. Well, if I have lots and lots of case studies and testimonials and previous customers and proof from my early adopters, do you think it's going to be easier or harder to get mainstream? The answer is obviously much easier. That's why we prioritize it so much. This is one of those, in the journey of 1,000 steps, it starts with one step, but the first 10 really matter. And if you do those well, you'll get the other 900, right? 990. But if you don't do those first 10 well, you're going to stumble and trip and fumble for miles and miles and miles. More risk. We talked about this. When in doubt, more early adopters, because guaranteed you probably haven't penetrated the early adopter market fully, and for learnings, for money, for engagement, for case studies, dig in hard, right? As hard as you can. So now let's talk about pricing framework for that MVP/beta. So here's my order of operations mentally, how I'm kind of negotiating price in my head. Number one, most important thing, case studies. Because again, here I'll give you an easy example. The 4th customer doesn't know that the first 3 didn't pay, right? And if the 4th is converting because of the results delivered from the first 3, bam. That is the transaction, and you can stretch it. Maybe it's 1 case study, maybe it's 100, maybe it's 0, and you're just really convincing, whatever. But having proof is really powerful, because even if those first case studies were free, meaning you had to eat the cost, that 4th one and the 5th customer that pays and the 7th customer that pays, yeah, the first 3 didn't pay or didn't pay for 6 months, but you've made 1,000 other customers who cares about the first 3 from a revenue basis. So that's why case studies are always the most important to me, because if I have a product that I can prove works, the only thing I need from there is fulfillment and sales, right? I need the ability to push it to people, and I need the ability to service it, assuming the product, works itself. Next is product feedback. Now, I want product feedback. That's often a part of developing case studies, but the idea is product feedback is what's good, what's bad. Case studies are about what was the result, what worked, what was the output that a CFO, a CEO, or an individual would judge the success of a product by, or an offering or a purchase. If you're hiring a lawyer, your lawsuit goes through well. You're using a software, the software works, what have you. The least important here is money. And it should, again, you've heard me say it once, I'll say it again. The money matters the least because you can always make it. But if you don't have feedback and if you don't have case studies, making the money is really, really hard to do. So the way I think about pricing in my head is first, I'm free, then I'm cheap, then I'm at market rate or even premium. Start free, give it away for cheap, and then bring it up to market. So again, when I'm thinking of pricing, I'm thinking of pricing on two frameworks as well. One is relative pricing, meaning let's say I brought out all of my competitors, softwares that are similar to me, direct, indirect competitors, whatever is kind of in my universe. What percent am I above or below their price? And some of them may have different pricing. Some may charge per month, some may charge per year, some may charge a commission. Again, people like to get real fancy. This is where you might have to do a little bit of arithmetic. Okay, over the course of 1 year, we cost 10,000, which is, X amount per month. They cost 12,000. And even though their math has like 18 variables, it comes out to 12,000 per year. We're a 20% discount. You're doing some math to make it real for the customer to decide, right? The customer has to understand, am I paying more? Am I paying less? And the other piece to this is absolute pricing, which means what's the actual dollar? There's a difference between $20, $200, $2,000, and $200,000. And the ROI on all of them can be 1,000%, but spending $200,000 is different than spending $2. So part of it is understanding the context of how much money from like a budgetary perspective, whether it's an individual's personal budget or a corporation's annual budget, am I asking for to enable this? And does it make sense? Do I need to start small? For example, I know some companies that they were once servicing clients that were way too small, and they increased their minimum to 20, 30, 40,000 as like a service provider. That's where their minimum is. And so, yeah, they lose a bunch of customers in the hyper early stage, but they solve so many more problems of who they can sell, how they can service, and they have enough case studies already to consistently sell that level of customer. It's a good thing. You're always going to be premium, equal, or discount, and that's a position, meaning if someone were to say, why are you premium? Why are you equal? Why are you at a discount? You should have an answer that makes sense because you're positioning yourself relative to them at a premium, at a discount. And if when they go, why is that? You go, well, it's like, well, then don't expect a sale, right? Don't expect them to take you seriously because you're not taking it seriously. Here are the specific steps. Again, people go like, but Aaron, I want more specifics. All right, here it is exactly. I need you to research all of your competitors, all of their pricing structures, and do all the math on it. You got to turn it to a yearly cost, an annual cost, a monthly cost, whatever. You need to have unitize, right? Because if you can't unitize, you can't make anything. We're this and they're that, and it's 20% difference. If everything's its own description, it just doesn't work. When in doubt, approximate, meaning the difference between them charging $12,000 a year and $11,500 is probably nothing, right? So if you have to estimate certain things, that's fine. Next, quantify your product's potential value to customer. So as an example, I use B2B because it's the easiest. If I was selling them a piece of software that was going to save them money, what is the minimum and maximum amount of money they could hypothetically save? Okay, so now I know, wow, we could save $5,000 or $10,000 a year. Now I know my competitors charge $7,000. We think we can charge we can save up to $10,000. Okay, maybe we charge $7,000 and then we do like a little minimum, or we can gain more money if we deliver certain performance metrics. I'm starting to think, I'm starting to rationalize how a product pricing strategy can, come to fruition. And then fundamentally, I don't like to price equal to my competitors because then it makes it hard for the customer to understand what they're getting and why they're getting it. I like the premium or discount model because premium is, hey, this is a premium value. You're getting more. We're better. We're improved. We offer more. The discount is, hey, we do the same or more for less, right? If you're doing the same for 20% less, it's a good thing because it's the customer likes that. You have to be cautious because then you can enter a price war where it's first your competitor charges 100, then you charge 80, they charge 60, you charge 40, and then you're both poor. That's a bad outcome as well. There's a certain kind of break-even point where you want to make sure you're making enough money. But if they're notably overcharging, perfect example, I have a buddy that likes this piece of B2B software, but it's only built for enterprises. So to get it is like 20, 30, 40 grand a year. his idea was simple. What if I make something simpler and charge 50% the price? Because I only need two of the features. Two of the features will only cost me a little bit to build, and I can charge so much less. And those two features are actually where 51% of the value is. Notice how we're getting a compelling story just by understanding where value is, how to position ourselves. And notice I'm not giving you a specific dollar because your price is going to evolve over time. It's going to evolve. On average, startups are changing their price every quarter to every month. In the early days, you might change it very meaningfully, like every other couple weeks, because you're learning and you're guessing and you're questioning. But then over time, it'll stabilize a bit more, and then it'll go up with inflation or product or what have you. A note on case studies, because people go like, well, if case studies are so important, what needs to go into them? I want to set my price as high as possible. If you want to set a high price and you want to set a confident price, case studies, in my experience, are the answer. You need quantitative metrics. You have to prove value. And for a business, this would mean ROI, meaning I'm making money, I'm saving money, I'm reducing risk, I'm increasing employee retention through like an improved experience, right? Or on the consumer side, it's like, hey, I'm making money, I'm saving money, I'm blah, blah, blah. But I'm giving a KPI, a key performance indicator that shows that my end user is getting that end value, that there's a value being received and I can quantify it. And quantifying it means different things. For some businesses, it could mean that you're quantifying how much dollars you're saving. For others, as an example, for advertising, people quantify how many views a stream or a YouTube video gets, and then they apply a marketing formula to it and pay people for ads or pay people for sponsorships or what have you. This is based off quantitative metrics. Testimonials, two types, written and video. It's always good to have the quote because you can put the quote in 1,000 places and have it be really powerful and put the person's title and make it all nice. But a video is also very powerful because people want to hear someone say it. And if you have a homepage that has tons of video testimonials, the odds of you getting more conversion, much higher, right? Much higher when you're not the first person to test the roller coaster, when 10 other people hop off and go, oh, it's great. All right, I'll be number 11. When I'm thinking case study, I'm thinking it must contain these three things or else it's not done. I need to know the situation, which is what's happening, right? Companies are facing compliance issues. People looking for legal support aren't receiving it by X, Y, and Z% or through this, that, and the other. Like, if I don't know the situation and can identify with it, right? You want the customer to be able to go, hey, that's me, or hey, that could be me. Gotcha. The action is what you did. So our startup did this. We implemented that. We built in this. We structured that. Result, which resulted in, which yielded 20% more, 30% increase in margin, $500,000 in dollars in additional revenue, whatever. These are the 10 extra vacations taken per year, and happiness score increase of 20%. Notice any number, and I use numbers because, again, I want 10,000 testimonials. That's still a number, right? I have 500 testimonials that are all positive, and I can show you some of them to hear the words and the kindness and the excitement behind it. Notice you have so many options when you do testimonials and case studies properly, because you've got situations, you've got frameworks, you've got results, you got so much stuff you can lean on. It's a really stable house. Then you can use this house to go sell more houses. Pricing mentality, a few tips on this. So first and foremost, pricing is all about emotionally perceived ROI. Because remember, they're not predicting the future. They have no idea if their thing or the thing they're buying from you is going to work, is going to deliver on all that ROI that you're promising. So it's always a kind of perception of ROI. And a lot of it's emotional because, again, remember, they're just guessing. They can make a scientific assessment and then guess at the end. Well, I guess we'll try you. Here we go. The goal is, again, if you want to think about it from their mindset, if I'm giving this guy $1, am I really going to get 5 back? And if so, I'll buy it if I believe it. But if I don't, I shouldn't buy it, or I'm going to hesitate on the sale, what have you. When I hear no from the context of pricing, what I actually hear is I don't see the value. Because if what I'm offering them, I believe will yield value, and I'm charging $100 a month for it, and they go, no, it's too much. And I know that all my competitor research and all of these things are right. They're not saying no to the 100, because if I'm offering them $10,000 in value a year for $100 a month, which is $1,200 a year, why would they say no to that? Could it be that they're not an early adopter and they're just mainstream and they need more case studies before they're convinced? Could it be that they don't really understand the product and so they're just going to say no to price because they don't really get it, right? Could it be that they don't understand the ROI and they don't really get it? And if you explained it to them again and they really got it, they would go, oh, $100 is cheap. Don't just hear no. And my encouragement would be, here, I don't see the value. And then you can always ask, like, hey, when you say no, is it no because of the price? Is it no because of the value? I'm open to your feedback. And some customers are going to be like, no, piss off and hang up the phone. All right, fine. Others are going to be like, oh, it's just way too pricey for us right now, or I don't really get what it's going to do for us. And here we go, back in the sales process, trying to educate, trying to learn, trying to put it in the right perspective for them to be able to understand. Just because you understand it or know it or believe it doesn't mean they do. You have to translate it. And it's not always just translated with passion. Passion is good. Customers respond to passion. If it's like, this is really going to do great stuff for you and I really believe and blah, blah, blah. But the passion only goes so far. After a while, you need those good hard facts, right? Which show, here's what we've done. Here's what we will do. Here's our guarantee. Here's our minimums. Here's our protections. Like, you're helping them understand and you're de-risking things. One last note on pricing before I go is pricing is all about a negotiation, and sometimes you have to negotiate bad deals to do good deals later. So I want to encourage you not to look at pricing as the end all be all of your startup, but much more as a place that you're going to build the foundation of value from, and the place where you're going to build case studies, where you're going to build knowledge, where you're going to be able to quantify value and ultimately see just how far this startup journey can really take you.